Welcome to the WTIM Morning Show. I'm Avery Cooper. Your stream brought to you by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, as well as the Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark. I'm in studio here with Christian County State's Attorney candidate, John McWard. Great to have you here in studio, Mr. McWard.
Hey, thank you so much for having me today.
So let's just start it off real simple. Tell me about your experience and why you decided to run.
Absolutely. I graduated in 2017 from law school from Northern Illinois University. I began my career as a prosecutor in Sangamon County State's Attorney's Office. There I started out in traffic and misdemeanor, moved up to DUIs, and then at the end, I started working in felony and gun prosecution. Now I'm a criminal defense attorney here in town with my dad, and as it relates to my intentions and why I want to be the next state's attorney, first and foremost, one of the highest honors I think I've ever experienced was being an assistant state's attorney, working with people, solving problems, being a voice in the courtroom for those who can't. That was one of the biggest reasons I ran, especially this election. So.
Well, what are some of the achievements that you are most proud of, or maybe even if there's a case that sticks out to you, or what are you proud of in your time that you've been an attorney?
I would say every client, from a defense attorney perspective, every client I've ever been able to help out of a situation is memorable. Specifically, when I was a prosecutor, I was representing a victim's family who had succumbed to a shooting. And from day one, the case was assigned to me. I was working with the family day in, day out, and eventually got a conviction for the individual who brought the weapons that led to the death of another. And that case really stood out to me. And really enjoyed the process, working with victim families. Securing justice was the paramount of that experience.
And it sounds like it really plays into that running decision too. I mean, just not just that specific case, but that kind of feeling of helping out the victims, seeking justice, etc. For that has kind of led you to this point today.
That's entirely correct. One of the biggest things about being a prosecutor that goes overlooked is helping out victims' families. And that is one of the paramount goals. If I were elected to be the next state's attorney in Christian County, putting victims' wants and needs first. And I think a lot of times those go overlooked just because, they're not at every court date. They're not there. I just want to make sure that their voice is heard because it's not what the defense attorney wants. It's not what the prosecutor wants. It's what the victim wants.
Why do you want the office? You've spoken a little bit, but specifically, why do you want to challenge the incumbent?
I am challenging the incumbent because I think I'm the best person for the job. I think I have the most experience out of any candidate right now, including Mr. Pogenpool. I have more jury trial experience here in Christian County. I have more bench trial experience. I was the only person during COVID to try a jury trial. And I think I can get the job done right the first day of work and continue success from there.
How did that jury trial not play into your decision to run, but more so, how is that? I guess, how can you describe that experience working into COVID? And I know we're kind of in a different age of the way law is practiced now because of everything. How do you feel that helps you?
I take the experience from it. A lot of the substantive hearings and trials, they're in person, right? But we have Zoom court right now. It's very difficult. And it's very difficult to make sure people show up to court, but also work with technology. That's something I had to learn very fast to get acclimated and make sure I have all my ducks in a row. But specifically, I think having a trial during COVID, it was interesting to the extent where did we want to bring people in to the courtroom that might have been scared? You know, the jury trial was at the very beginning of COVID. Many people were scared. You know, would it be a disservice to a defendant to bring in people and be prejudged just being in the courtroom around people during that pandemic?
Right.
So,
well, you alluded a little bit to why you want to challenge the incumbent, but on the Republican side, what makes you different from other candidates?
Absolutely. I'm the only candidate who practices day in, day out in criminal court here in Taylorville, or in Christian County, more specifically. I have more jury trial and bench trial criminal experience than both my other opponents. I know I'm the younger candidate out of both of them, but I'm in court every day. I'm in criminal court, and if I'm not, it may be a day off. So I think I have a pulse in that courtroom, and I know how that system works. I know what needs fixed, and I know where I can put myself in to make it a better place.
How much do you feel age will play into this election?
Respectfully, and I'm a history buff, so I watched Ronald Reagan's
of course
speech when he was running for president. I think age does not play a major role, and being the younger candidate, I think it's given me a leg up. More specifically, you know, we've had miserable heat these last couple weeks, and I was the only candidate out there walking doors to date. Based off of the pamphlets I've been handing out, I've hit 5,000 doors here in Christian County, and I think I have the energy that I don't think my opponents do. So,
may I say respectfully, you look like you've been knocking on 5,000 doors. Got a little bit of sun.
Sunburn. I need to wear sunscreen. Yes, you're right.
Oh no, you look good. You look.
Thank
good.
you. Thank you.
You look like you've been knocking on doors, which is what you want from a candidate now. Speaking of knocking on doors, what do you tell them when you're asking for their vote?
Absolutely. I introduce myself. Hi, I'm John McWard. I'm running for Christian County State's Attorney. Handing my pamphlet, I say, there's a little bit more about myself. Do you have any questions for me? Most of the questions center the feedback. That is, most of the questions, you know, how are we going to tackle this methamphetamine problem that we have? How do we maintain our property values when houses left and right are becoming drug houses? And, you know, my response is, let's get all of our local law enforcement agencies, bring in state, bring in federal law enforcement agencies, and let's get the job done. If we all work together, we tackle the problem. And that's my goal, day one. Yeah,
I mean, the problem of methamphetamine usage is pretty prevalent in Christian County. And, you know, of course, it's not just users, right? There's a dealer presence in the area. I don't know enough about it, so I'm going to let you kind of tell me about what the problem is and what you plan to do if you're elected state's attorney to do about that methamphetamine problem.
Absolutely. So from my experience as a prosecutor, I had the privilege and honor of working with not only local law enforcement agencies, but federal and state. What I've seen, both as a prosecutor and a defense attorney, is when you assign an agent, you know, whether it be from the FBI, DEA, we call it CEIG, CEIG, Central, or CIEG, pardon me, Central Illinois Enforcement Group. We assign agents to these local law enforcement agencies, and it's a collective effort. And when we have those resources that some of these local agencies may not have, we give them a leg up in the game. And then when we work together, we get the big guys. And, you know, my goal is strong prosecution. So once we get these big drug dealers, once we figure out the source of the problem, we make sure that tough prosecution occurs. And from there, we make sure that these drug dealers and these users don't want to commit crimes in Christian County. Because with that, you know, we reduce the crime rate, businesses start investing in our community, better schools, larger tax base, and you know, people will want to raise their kids here for generations to come. That's my goal.
What is, opinion, right? We're not going to be actually addressing the root of the
Right,
problem
right.
now. But what do you feel, in your opinion, is the reason for this? I'll just say it. It's an epidemic in Christian County.
Right. I think that is a very loaded question. I think
Fair enough.
I think from my experiences as a defense attorney, obviously I can't say what my clients tell me.
Of course.
However, what I've come to know is that people start hanging out with the wrong people, and they get themselves in a situation where I don't know what makes people want to do meth,
right?
But they start hanging around with the wrong people, and it's easily accessible. It's coming across our borders. And tenfold, we're not making methamphetamine anymore. We're getting it from Mexico. It's more pure. It's starting to be cut with fentanyl and other drugs, and it's just become a terrible, terrible situation. However, I will say this: one of the great things in Christian County is safe passage. I have, if I was a prosecutor, if I was the next elected state's attorney, I'd have so much more sympathy for somebody who tried and failed at rehab 10 times before they were finally caught. Because that shows me, I think it shows the county, hey, I need help. I need help. And if they're just wanting drug court or rehab just because they're in the jail, I have a lot less sympathy for someone like that. I need somebody to go to rehab.
You need someone that's willing to show that and admit that they have a problem.
Correct. And that's the first step of addiction.
Right. As opposed to being kind of willed into it from the court system.
Correct.
Right. Well, let's take a quick break here, and I'll reintroduce you. That's Christian County State's Attorney candidate John McWard. He's running as a Republican. The primary election day is Tuesday, June 28th. You can vote early now. You are listening to the WTIM Morning Show. Your stream brought to you by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark. More after this short break.
WTIM. WTIM.
Welcome back to the WTIM Morning Show. I'm Avery Cooper. People's Bank and Trust proud to bring you this stream on TaylorvilleDailyNews.com's Facebook and WTIM TV YouTube. They put people first, along with Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark. I'm here in studio with Christian County State's Attorney candidate John McWard. He's running as a Republican in the primary election, which you can vote for right now. The primary election date is June 28th. That's this coming Tuesday. So, Mr. McWard, I really appreciate you coming in here. We were talking a little bit about the drug issue in Christian County, but I want to move on from that. One of the big issues on your platform right now you're focused on is victims' rights.
Right.
Can you give me a little bit of background on that issue? And let's start on the background a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. So victims' rights, if you are a victim of a crime, burglary, battery, somebody comes in your house and severely hurts you, you could be in the hospital for 6 months, especially as a simple car crash, right? We think of that just being a traffic ticket, but that you are a victim of a crime. And Cindy Dre at the state's attorney's office now is a fantastic victim rights advocate. And that's the kind of person, that we need working hand in hand, not only with her or someone like her, but with the state's attorney. I want to make sure that the victims of crimes have a direct access to myself if I was the next state's attorney, and make sure that their rights are heard. When we think about a victim, we think about somebody who is scared of an aggressor. It may be a domestic battery situation, a former spouse that they're scared of coming into court. And it'd be truly an honor to stand up side by side with that victim and be that voice in the courtroom for them when they may be too scared to tell their aggressor how they feel. As a prosecutor in the past, I was able to read victim statements and to see the emotion and see the feeling put behind that statement. It made me feel really honored to be able to say that on behalf of a victim. So,
yeah. Well, also one of the other big things that you're focused on, asset forfeiture.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that issue.
So, and it's specific to the statute.
What's that statute?
I don't have it off the top of my head.
No worries. I get it.
But it is when somebody commits a crime, an enumerated crime. Agencies have the ability to seize or do an asset forfeiture on a vehicle, let's say. So if you're using a car to commit a crime, the local law enforcement agency can petition the court through the state's attorney's office to seize that vehicle. And the goal, or in my mind, is if we take away modes of transportation, if we take away criminals' assets, things in which they use to perpetuate crimes, then we reduce their ability to do so. And now it's not we can't do that on every situation, right? But if we can take the burden off the taxpayers, if we can take a $16,000 car and let the local law enforcement agency use that as a utility vehicle, as something to provide them money to buy new equipment, for example,
right.
We take that burden off the taxpayers and make the criminals pay for it. And that's why I think that'd be an asset and a benefit as your next state's attorney.
Understood. Well, we are out of time, so I want to thank you so much for coming on the WTIM Morning Show.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and I thank you so much for the opportunity.
That's Christian County State's Attorney candidate John McWard here on the WTIM Morning Show. Your stream brought to you by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where they always do better with Landmark.
WTIM.